everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Property Manager. I'm Eric Worrell with RentPrep.com, and we have Andrew Schultz of Realty Edge, who is an associate broker who manages over 120 doors here in the Western New York area. How you doing today, Andrew?
Very good. Yourself?
Very good. I am in a warm house. You are in a car, our usual areas here. And we thought we'd start off with a conversation here from Maria. So Andrew picked this question because Maria asked this question right here. During pre-screening, potential tenants said there was an identity theft. Actually, they had some theft on some credit cards that were opened in her name. And her credit card or her credit is frozen pending investigation. Is this a big red flag or could it happen? I haven't ran her credit check yet. So what are your thoughts? Why did you pick this question, Andrew? What did you want to answer about this?
I picked this question. I like this question a lot because we've had situations where we've uncovered credit, like identity theft, that people didn't even know was going on before. Mm-hmm. We've had people that have lied to us about identity theft. And now with the recent Equifax, was it Equifax or Experian?
Equifax.
Equifax. The Equifax breach, more and more people are locking their credit reports and freezing their credit reports. Mm-hmm. And it's honestly, it's not a bad idea because it stops people from being able to open cards in your name, open accounts in your name, even pull a credit report. As you guys know over at RentPrep, you can't pull a credit report on somebody that has a locked credit unless they give you the authorization to do so. So whether or not it's a scam is, it's a question mark until you look at the credit report and really find out what's going on there. And she can kind of, the applicant can kind of explain it. It's kind of a 50-50 shot as to whether they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes or whether it's actually credit theft. But it'll show on their credit report if they've reported those as as fraudulent. I think it shows right on the credit report that that's being disputed by the consumer as an identity theft issue. So it should be pretty straightforward to see it once you have the credit report.
Well, I was going to say that I personally would not consider it a red flag if somebody said this because I know I've dealt with this in my family where my wife had somebody who got her credit card information and was buying, somehow I think actually produced a credit card because in store locally here in Buffalo was going in and buying gift cards on her credit card.
Right.
So to say that my wife would be a bad runner because of that, I'm obviously biased, but I wouldn't say that. Right. So I think from that aspect of the conversation, no, I would not say it's a big red flag if somebody has this. But then you're going to have to work through the process of actually running their credit at some point. And you kind of alluded to that before, that they'll have to unfreeze their credit. So have you had to do this with any applicants that you've run?
I don't think I've had to do it with any applicants that I've run. I've definitely discovered people that have identity theft issues on their credit report that they weren't even aware of. And we kind of pointed them to some resources that could help them out. But I think that it's going to become more and more prevalent now with this Equifax breach that you're going to see people either locking their credit down or finding more instances of identity theft just simply because of the sheer volume of social security numbers that were compromised as part of that breach.
Yeah, absolutely. And basically, if somebody does have their account frozen, what they have to do is they have to reach out to either TransUnion or the third-party service that they set up that freeze with, and they'll just get a temporary PIN code that can allow them to release that credit report. So in the case if somebody's running a background check with RentPrep, they would release that information for us so that we can release it to the landlord or the party that's asking for that credit report. One thing that I'm not sure of, but that we haven't ran into, so we've had SmartMove up and running on our site since March. And the way that SmartMove is different than running like a credit check is that the tenant applicant is the one who's actually in charge of running the report. They essentially have the report and then they decide who can see the report. So they release it to people. And I was talking to Steve before I jumped on this call, and he said we have yet to run into a credit freeze issue on a SmartMove report. After doing some quick research, I haven't found anything that says, yes, there are no credit freezes involved with SmartMove, but that might make sense because the tenant is the one that's actually authorizing the credit report to begin with.
Yeah, that would make sense. If the tenant's the one authorizing the pull and then the tenant has the ability to release that report to the landlord, that would make sense because it's a tenant pull and not a landlord pull.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to close this video with, it probably won't be a quick story, but I think it's worth telling. Before you were telling me on one of these videos here about an issue where you found somebody had stolen their uncle's identity. Do you want to kind of share that story?
Man. Yeah, it was crazy. Like the guy, it was on one of our nicer rentals. It was a $1,200 a month townhouse that we have for rent up here in Amherst, which is, it's a decent priced rental in the Buffalo market. That's closer to the high end. The guy had done such a complete job of stealing his uncle's identity. He had a license with his photo on it, not the uncle's photo, like a valid New York State license with the thief's photo on it.
Hmm.
He had a copy of the Social Security card. He had, uh, bank statements, or not bank statements, tax returns because the uncle was self-employed. Just all of this stuff. It was staggering how in depth this guy went to steal his uncle's identity, to the point where I didn't catch it. We
Hmm.
placed the tenant, and I sat there, and 2 months later we're getting a phone call from the police department because they just burst in the door to raid the property for drugs. And I thought it was totally crazy. And I went back and pulled that application, and I ran it myself, and then my office manager ran it again, and we both sat there and looked at every single aspect of that file, and neither one of us would have had any question about running to that person again because he did such a complete job.
Hmm.
So I guess that just goes to show you, no matter how careful you are when you go to screen people, there's always an opportunity for somebody to slip through the cracks. It's tenant screening gets you as far as it's going to get you, but it's nobody's perfect and everybody has an angle. So
Yep. And in that particular case, was it the police then that had alerted you, and that's how you found out? You said, yeah.
actually that's how we found out. We ended up pulling a copy of the police report, which had the guy's actual name on it. And actually, I think he had convinced the police that he was the uncle as well. And it wasn't
Hmm.
until they got him to the station and fingerprinted him that they realized that no, this is a huge identity theft case. It
Yeah.
turned into a real mess. It really did.
Well, that's also a good example too of why you should be keeping all your applications on file. So you have easy access. So in your case, the police reached out and said, "Hey, we think that there's somebody in here doing some illegal stuff. Can you check it out for us?" And you can easily access that information. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
the police brutalized that property too. They tore like heating duct vents off. They pulled cabinets off, like the upper cabinets, the hanging
Yeah.
cabinets. They pulled those down. Uh,
Wow.
they
It's like
pulled
Breaking Bad.
Oh, it was bad. It was like they pulled the dishwasher out. It was crazy the lengths that they went to try to find anything that they could on this guy or any product in the house or whatever. And I don't ultimately know how much they found or whatever, but it was a mess, and we had to go through the full process to get the guy out of the property. We actually had to go through a full eviction despite the fact that the guy was incarcerated.
That's crazy. You'd think
Yep.
just from the amount of lies that he told through the process, you could expedite that past an eviction.
We probably could have gone, because we have an abandonment clause in our lease. We probably could have gone that route, but just for the sake of being 100%, we decided, you know what, process it as an eviction and just be done with it.
Well, this is a very interesting case here, and thanks for sharing that story, Andrew. So yeah, if anybody does have an issue with the tenant applicant with who has frozen their credit, just have them reach out, get that temporary PIN code so that you can access that credit report. That shouldn't be a problem as long as they're working well with you. So thanks for picking this story and sharing that, or picking this question and sharing that story with us. That was really insightful and interesting. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, a little bit of a day into the life of a landlord, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
You as well.